Welcome to You, AI and Us from the University of Southampton. I'm Zoe Hanson and we're covering all things British Science Festival, and this is a very different collaboration.
The questions that we are thinking about is specifically thinking about AI. What could it do for us? How can we use it to make our world better? What are the risks? Those aren't just questions that are for academics or scientists or researchers. Those are human questions that we should all be thinking about.
I'm very excited to welcome Vic Briggs, theatre maker,
Hello.
to the podcast. So what's your involvement in the British Science Festival?
So MAST Mayflower Studios and the University of Southampton are collaborating to, they have put a small number of researchers and artists together and offered seed commissions to explore AI. So the academics, the researchers are all using AI in their work, and then the artists are collaborating and kind of taking that work and that research as a starting point and inspiration in order to create a creative response, whatever that might look like, to the research. And then that's all going to be shared at a scratch night where we present or perform whatever comes out of these collaborations.
Amazing. Yeah. So talk to me about the collaboration and the process, or the starting point, and then where you sort of hope to get to.
Well, we're right at the beginning of the process at the moment. So I've been paired with Nadera, and we have had some conversations about her research and the communities that she works with, and we've kind of had far-reaching conversations where we've sort of started over here, and then something's been a bit interesting. We've kind of just had a chat really about taking her research and her work as the starting point.
So Nadera is going to be on this podcast as well, and we will talk to her about her side of these things. But tell me, just in a nutshell, what is her research all about?
So her research is it's about podiatry, but with a specific focus on people who are living with type 2 diabetes and people who are refugees or asylum seekers, and the particular challenges that group of people face in looking after their feet. And so I think when Nadera and I began to have conversations, the thing that I found really interesting is the intersection between our work is really that she works a lot with communities, and that her work is centering social justice, which is something that's really interesting to me as a theatre maker. So thinking about how the stories that I tell or the work that I make, it's all about whose story are you wanting to tell, and social justice and thinking about whose stories we present on stage is a really important part of that, which isn't necessarily to say that what we will end up with in this collaboration is kind of a particular person's story, but I think that element of Nadera's work I find really interesting. The fact that she's working in community, she's talking to people, and that kind of real first-hand lived experience is part of her research. And that, coincidentally, well, I think that is probably why MAST has paired us in that way, because there's that real. On the one hand, you've got, podiatry and theatre making, and those are two things that you wouldn't think would go together, and AI sort of nebulously in the middle of that. But I think that the crossover really is about the human connection and the human stories. And so that's what I'm interested in, that's what we've taken as our starting point.
And how does this fit in with the British Science Festival? It's very exciting to have this in Southampton and to tell these stories, but where does the science piece come in, do you think?
The collaboration for British Science Festival is really important because the questions that we are thinking about are, specifically thinking about AI. Those aren't just questions that are for academics or scientists or researchers. Those are human questions that we should all be thinking about. How are we using AI? Should we be using AI? What could it do for us? How can we use it to make our world better? What are the risks? Those are things that we should all be thinking about, and that's really, I think, why it's really important to pair academics and artists together, because what artists are really brilliant at is kind of starting those conversations and making them accessible to a wider audience. So I hope that as part of the whole programme of work that's at MAST Mayflower Studios, I hope that this collaboration will be part of that and will be part of sparking conversations.
So talk me through the process. You know, I know that we were at the very start of it, but how do you expect that this is going to go? What kinds of conversations are you having with Nadera at the moment?
There's been lots of conversations. I've been really fortunate enough to be able to come to an event where Nadera showcased her research, so I was able to meet some of the communities that she's been working with and kind of see some of that information presented. So that has given me a chance to sort of just mull and think, what threads from her research am I interested in, what needs some more exploration. I've had a couple of days in the studio at MAST, and I should say these are seed commissions, so they're little commissions. This isn't about kind of creating a finished piece.
Yeah.
And as part of that, there's no wider creative team. There's just me. So part of that time in the studio, by the end of the second day, I will say I had gone a bit mad. I had got a box of crisps from the bar and made myself a robot headdress, and I was just, you know, I had this moment of looking into the beautiful ballet mirrors in Studio 3 at MAST with a crisp box on my head, just thinking, is this really, what, is this art, or is this just me with a box of crisps on my head? And the answer is, I don't know, and I don't know if that box of crisps will make it into the final performance, but that's the process. Like it's a bit of fumbling in the dark. It's conversations and exploring and some writing and then calling Nadera up and saying, I'm thinking about this as an idea, and having more conversations. So that's what the process will look like. So it's quite, yeah, as I say, these are small commissions, so it's quite light touch. Mm-hmm. And I should say that the public sharing will be, you know, I use the word sharing deliberately. It's a sharing of a work in progress. It's a scratch. It won't be, no one will be presenting a sort of a finished movement piece or a full length play. It's about presenting a snapshot of a work in progress of where the work has developed to at that point, and then depending on the feedback and what comes out of that, potentially some of that work will then be continued beyond that, and some of it might not be.
What will somebody coming along to this scratch performance, being able to see your work in progress, what would you hope that they take away from it?
I would think that they would have a good night out. That's the first thing. That's really important. So it's an opportunity to, you know, come to the theatre, and, you know, all of the things that you would normally think about as coming to the theatre, perhaps coming with friends or on your own, perhaps getting yourself a drink from the bar and just having a good night. Mm-hmm. The opportunity to see not one but a number of pieces of work that are still in development, and have conversation about that. So I'm not quite sure how that night is going to run, whether the discussion will be part of the programme, you know, within the studio, or whether that will spill out into the bar. But I would hope that people will have an opportunity to get a glimpse into the artistic process, mm-hmm. Of different artists, and so that's gonna look really different. And be encouraged to think and reflect on some of the questions that the artists are, you know, reflecting on, and all of the artists have our brief is we're all responding and collaborating with our researcher partner, but it's specifically thinking about the use of AI in their work and in their research. So I think that night is going to give people a really, you know, lots of different perspectives, mm-hmm. and the opportunity to ask some questions and have some conversation.
I'm Zoe Hanson, and this is You, AI and Us. Now we welcome Nadera, our next guest. And you've brought something very interesting with you, Nadera. Come on, let's see it.
I brought my foot.
You've brought your foot. And why would you, Nadera, carry around a 2-foot plastic foot with you?
Because this is a great symbol of my research.
Okay.
I am a final year PhD student and a podiatrist here at the University of Southampton. And my research is looking at foot health in people seeking asylum who have type 2 diabetes. And I'm exploring their post-migration factors and what impacts their ability to look after their feet. And as part of my research, I got funding from Peru here at the University of Southampton to run community engagement workshops. And as part of the research, one workshop, I 3D printed a giant foot. It's a great talking piece.
You know, you're a podiatrist, you're going out into the community. What conversations are you having?
Well, it's a tricky one because when it comes to foot health, feet, there's a lot of stigma attached to feet. People don't want to talk about feet. So I have to be very creative in how I get them engaged. And this is where I use different sorts of creative methods to get them talking about feet, because ultimately I want to improve foot health of the nation.
Why do you think that people don't like feet?
It's a tricky one. I think it's because they think it's weirdly shaped and it's smelly. When you ask people, because I've done a workshop once where I've asked people to give some words to describe feet, and you had things like cheese, smelly, it's all negative words.
Yeah.
And I think it's, because they do get a bit smelly and they do have a weird shape, and I think also it's because it's hidden a lot.
So, and so do you think that because of that, people forget about foot health? Is that what your research is about?
Yes, so my particular research is looking at foot health in type 2 diabetes, because if you have type 2 diabetes, if you do not manage your type 2 diabetes, your feet, they get the impact first because they can lose sensation, and it can ultimately cause ulcers or amputation. But when I'm in the community, although my research is about type 2 diabetes, I'm also talking about foot health in general. When I speak to women, the older you get, your foot health decreases, and so I'm talking about people about foot health in general.
And how does AI come into this?
In my research, what I've found out when I'm speaking to people seeking asylum is that some of them have been using AI to help with answers for foot health. Okay. And because of the fact that they couldn't get appointments with their GP. And so with Vic and I, we're trying to explore that element of AI in research, particularly my research. But equally, I mean, AI has made huge advances in healthcare, so it's quite positive. But I think also it's to highlight that AI, Vic and I were speaking last week about it. Like, we used a metaphor where we said AI could be like the foot ulcer. If it's not checked, it could become a big problem. And when I say that, what we're referring to is things like AI is quite biased, and we look at foot inequalities or any health inequalities. It could be that AI makes it worse. For instance, the foot is brown. Okay, to get this foot, all right, I was very specific that I wanted to use brown filament. So this is 3D printed, all right, and to get the brown was really, really difficult. When I started, you'd think it was something very simple, right? But when I started healthcare, when I retrained as podiatrist, if you look at healthcare textbooks, all of the feet, the images are all white. And that's a huge problem. There's lots of research showing that the training is very difficult. So if I had to diagnose, and for instance, like pain, you always thought of inflammation, you look for redness.
Yes.
But in the brown skin, you won't see that. Okay, so lots of things are missed because we're not trained, and healthcare professionals are not trained using a different dark and colored skin.
Yes.
And this is the same with AI. There's this, what information are we putting in there, and it's actually shown that there are some discrepancies with what is being produced. Then we also have the issue of, trust. If we have, I know in my community research, and I'm speaking to the communities, lots of younger people are using AI. Yeah. All right, so what information are they putting in there? And what information are they getting? Can they trust that information? But there's also on the other side, with regards to, because I'm working with people seeking asylum and those with refugee status, the immigration, there's some AI being used with immigration checks and stuff like that. So it's good. AI is great in healthcare, but it's also we need to see who's at the table influencing and discussing these AI technologies is important.
The British Science Festival, who would you hope comes along to it? And what do you hope they take away from it?
Personally, I'd really like just the general public to come. And I think Vic and I were talking about this, and we were like, will there be academics in the room? Will there be researchers in the room? But actually, I really want just the general public to come. And I think being a podiatrist at heart, I just want people to take away, just look after your feet, love your feet, you know. And I mean, I know it's not just our collaboration isn't just about foot health, but I guess, you know, it's just who I am. And it's important once you start that engagement, that workshop, that we come to that session, then people walk away and they actually, you can see them thinking and hear them talking, so that we can sort of get rid of this stigma about feet, so that we can actually have conversations and people can go away and actually think, oh, well, what's going on with you today? You know, and I want this because of it being very creative. I want it to be for an audience where, like we said, like a ripple effect. You know, look after your feet. Yeah.
I love the message, love your feet. And for people coming along, will you have the foot with you? Could we have a selfie or a felthie? I don't know if that's a thing.
Oh my goodness! Oh no, we love that.
A felthie. Yeah, that's what we're calling it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, now that Vic and I are sort of, you know, looked at this, seen this now today, so we'll definitely be incorporating it in some way in it. And yeah, definitely. I mean, I'd love for people to have selfies and post it. That's good one. Please do.
Thank you so much, Nadera. I'm going to take a selfie with the foot right now. This is You, AI and Us from the University of Southampton, and we are totally across the British Science Festival.